I chair this commission. We know each other because we serve on the advisory council for the Home Improvement Network together. Susan Schaefer's has been with the county for 30 years and was the liaison with this commission since its inception and recently retired. And we had her nominated to be on the commission.
Oh, wonderful.
So she's now an almost official.
Almost.
Takes a while to get
How's
the.
this commission been going on?
So the about 10 years ago, the county voted to create an age-friendly community, and as part of an age-friendly community, it was required to have a commission, an older adult commission. So
Okay.
the county voted 10 years ago. I believe that the meetings that this commission was populated a little 9 years ago.
Okay.
And some of the people that were on that commission are still. I know that Carol was on it. Did you have anything to do with the creation of the commission?
No, I mean, I participated in the work groups,
Yes.
but it was part of something that came out of the work groups to establish the age-friendly community was we will have commissions.
So in 2014, the World Health Organization came out with a study on healthy aging. And as part of that, there was a recommendation to create age-friendly communities, and they created a toolkit.
Okay.
And then in partnership with the AARP, who was the sponsoring organization to get communities certified as age-friendly, we became an age-friendly community, and then there's certain requirements such as this commission. That's a short. Mike Nickel, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your career
Career's been involved with services and programs for the elderly. I started off with the state's Division of Aging when it was created in '79. I worked as a line social worker responding to abuse hotline calls for 15 years, and then went on through supervision and management. When I retired from the state, I was the regional manager for the state's Division of Aging Services, the St. Louis region. We were the smallest region geographically, but got more calls than the rest of the state put together on that. After that, I bounced around and did several things that I'm really not going to get into the whole string of things, but I did teach at Lawrence U for over 10 years, the master's level gerontology practice class at George Washington Brown. And then Susan graciously invited me to come work for St. Louis County and work for the county older resident programs for about 7 years full-time. And in that time got legislation passed to create a registry, functional access to functional needs registry for St. Louis County. So in case of emergencies, we could track where folks would need more help, different kind of help, things like that. And I'm tired. Came in, so that's about as quick as I can do. But yeah.
Carol Rodriguez.
Well, I remember a little bit, but I worked for the Alzheimer's Association for 25 years, and before that, the Area Agency on Aging, before that, Adult Day in Madison, Wisconsin. And anyway, my field has been, my work has been with adult aging.
Thank you. Cookie?
I was referred by county council at that time. She was Chair Ware.
Sure.
And I was excited. Went through mostly Spanish Lake North County as an advocate. Served on the community development operation for Spanish Lake.
Wow.
Served on Clean and Green. Was part of Rustic Roots. Provide resources for almost all of North County. Now I just become an advocate and try to do what I can to help the older people.
and recently an honoree at the Trailblazers.
Wow.
And I received the Lieutenant Governor's Award for older adults.
Hi, I'm Heidi Keeler. I am taking over for Susan as the scribe. I'm the case manager for St. Louis County. I really just cover the south area of the county for older adults, but right now there's no one in the position for North County, so I kind of am all over now.
Yeah.
And Alyssa?
Okay, let me get on camera. Hi, everybody. My name is Alyssa Para. I'm an assistant county counselor. I started in the middle of April. Before coming to the county, I worked at the Missouri Department of Revenue, doing driver's license revocation cases. And then before that, I actually worked across the river at Land of Lincoln Legal Aid, doing a lot of everything. Eviction defense, foreclosure defense, simple POA and estate planning documents for seniors. And orders of protection and no contest, no children divorces. So very excited to be here, very excited to be your all's liaison between legal. So if you all have any, legal questions that you're looking for a more detailed answer about as you all do the work that you do within the commission, let me know. I'll be here at every meeting, approving the agenda just to make sure that we're compliant with Missouri sunshine laws.
Thank you.
Okay?
As we get into our agenda, we may have some legal questions for you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll take notes and we'll get that process going, okay?
Thank you.
Did you work for Alton or?
Alton.
St. Louis? Oh, wow. That's sweet.
Yeah, I loved it. It's just very good work that a very specific type of person needs to be doing. And fresh out of law school was a little hard for me to be that person for a long period of time.
Yeah, I
So.
understand that. Yeah.
Turn the meeting over to you.
Okay, great. So I just want to mention our Chelsea Hubbard, who's at the Alton office, her sister is. So I was gonna use my PowerPoint, but my computer's being all wonky and won't let
Do
me.
you need another computer?
I think I can just speak.
Okay.
Still pretty easily, so I think it should be fine. So yeah, my name is Robin Harvey. I think it's spelled with a Y on your agenda, but it's with an I.
My apologies. That was
No.
totally my fault. I must have seen it that way.
Oh, it's all good. I think a lot of people make that mistake. I have been a staff attorney at Legal Services in Eastern Missouri for the past 3 years. Before that, I worked at the National Labor Relations Board. I work in our neighborhood advocacy department. You may be familiar with Legal Services, but we are the largest provider of civil legal aid in the St. Louis region. That's free legal services for anything other than criminal work. So divorce and estate planning and public benefits and education, all those types of things. So we're a pretty large organization as a whole. But I work for a specific team called Neighborhood Advocacy. We are a pretty unique team across the country. There are a few programs like us around the country, including Kansas City. And we were initially called the Neighborhood Vacancy Initiative because our focus from the outset was to address vacant properties in St. Louis City. I'm going to back up quickly. We do have an attorney at Legal Services, Victoria St. Jean, who is focuses on elder law in the consumer division. So if you have specific elder law questions, she would be the best person to talk to. And I can put you in touch. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Lily.
Good morning.
I think you know what it's for. I heard that. I heard
Oh,
this.
yeah.
Oh, that was like a bad surprise when you got that long.
Okay, so how did you get off of this?
And I came page to Lindbergh and went around.
Oh, wow.
That's okay.
Weird. Lillian, I'm Robin. I work for Legal Services. I've never seen that before, but I don't know. Context, but yeah. Would you introduce yourself real quick, just so I just say.
I'm Lillian Eunice.
And what do you do?
I'm the city administrator over in Pine Lawn. but-
Oh, yes, that's why. Good to see you again,
Yes,
yes.
to see you too. I've worked with older adults much longer than I've done anything else.
Yes. Okay, so I was just saying, I'm a staff attorney at Legal Services and our Neighborhood Advocacy Unit. And we started as the Neighborhood Vacancy Initiative in 2018 to address vacant properties in the city of St. Louis. So we were focused on city. In the past few years since I've been hired, we've been expanding our services into St. Louis County. So our team has kind of a multi-pronged approach to addressing vacancy. The main thing, well, we have two main things that we do. One is vacancy prevention, and that would involve estate planning and heirs property title work. I'm going to talk much more about those things in detail a little bit later. The other thing that we do is vacancy mitigation, and that's actually active lawsuits against owners of vacant abandoned nuisance properties. And we do those cases on behalf of neighborhood organizations and CDCs in both St. Louis City and St. Louis County. And the neighborhood group serves as our plaintiff. We file a lawsuit usually using the Abandoned Housing Act, which is a law specific to the state of Missouri. And the purpose of those lawsuits is to try to hold those owners accountable, make it more expensive for them to be owning a vacant, deteriorated property, and eventually for that property to be fixed up or to be transferred to a rehabber who can fix up that property. So that's a lot of my caseload, is doing those kinds of cases. And because that is our focus, we're often focused in North St. Louis City, in some neighborhoods in South St. Louis, like Dutchtown. And then we're also starting to expand into North St. Louis County as well. So that's a big bucket of what I do. And then the other is vacancy prevention. And we were thinking about what properties in the region are most likely to become vacant. Those are usually ones that are owned by older adults who don't have an estate plan or an effective estate plan for their needs. And then also people who are living in properties where it was not inherited through an estate plan. So they're living in heirs property that is still titled to the deceased owner. So we use our legal tools to address both of those populations of people. We offer free estate planning services to homeowners that qualify, and at Legal Services, we can pretty much serve any senior regardless of income and assets. We do try to focus our services on neighborhoods that are lower income, but we do have the ability to serve anyone. We also are pretty strategic about the legal tools that we use. So typically when we're talking about estate plans, kind of in general parlance, people talk about wills and trusts. We actually don't often use those tools on our team. Wills, you may know this, they have to be probated or submitted to probate court within 1 year of the person's passing. So often that is a barrier that makes it impossible for that will to actually be effective for that family. So sometimes people will have an estate plan, they will have consulted with an attorney, but it still does not effectively transfer their property to their family after they've passed. So instead, we use something called a beneficiary deed, which maybe many of you have heard of, but they are just a one-page document that have to have prepared by an attorney, but it's a kind of one-time cost. Once it's been recorded with the county recorder of deeds, it is effective to transfer your property, your real property, upon your passing to the beneficiaries that you've named. So we prefer these documents because for the heirs or the beneficiaries that are taking the property, they don't have to hire an attorney to get that property into their name. So there's not a financial barrier for those people. And they are much simpler than administering a probate case with a will or a trust. So that's our primary tool that we use. We also do powers of attorney and healthcare directives for clients who are looking for some sense of security in case they are no longer able to make decisions for themselves about medical or financial decisions. We usually will send those to our volunteer lawyer program. They host clinics a few times a year to do those documents because those can be kind of a one-stop shop. You have to talk to an attorney one time, get them done. And so we can share out with y'all when those happen if you're interested. But those are the tools that we primarily use on that front end, trying to prevent properties from becoming vacant. And then on the other side, if someone has inherited a home through the default laws of Missouri, if you die without an estate plan, your property splits between your living heirs as dictated by Missouri statute. So people can be living in a home that is split between like 15 people. And there's the property's been fractured in this way that makes it really impractical to do anything with the home. So that's the consequence of not having an estate plan, is you get in this really tangled situation with many people in your family having to make decisions together about if you're gonna get home repair services, if who's gonna pay the taxes, are you gonna sell the property, are you gonna keep it? So we try to help families who are in that situation bundle those pieces back together and get a more effective ownership model in place. So usually one client will come to us and be the person who's been living in that property and kind of explain what's going on, and then we will do an affidavit of heirship to show who has owned the property after that person's passed, and then we'll do deeds transferring property back to that one person who's living in the property. So those are the tools that we do to try to clean up that mess, but a lot of times that is why properties are vacant in our communities, is that somebody died without an estate plan, and it is too expensive and time intensive to try to fix that problem on the back end. Because these cases, the heirs property cases can take years to get everyone in touch. So that's my very quick version of what I was going to talk about. And happy to answer questions or get more in depth if that would be helpful.
So I know that Susan, in your role at the county, you've had a lot of issues that basically were a result of people not having
Right,
beneficiary needs. What would you do?
well, the county for many years had a sponsored covered legal program, and it was run by volunteer attorneys. And
Joan Kelly Horn did that.
Joan Kelly Horn.
Yeah, we really aren't. Yeah,
And as you know, that when Joan retired,
yeah.
for some reason that program went away. And so but then the county did recently, well, I guess a year or so ago, they started another program, and it's actually run through the Recorder of Deeds office in connection with CORE.
Yeah.
And so, but they're doing beneficiary deeds, medical directives, and I think some power of attorneys, they are not doing both either, for
Yeah.
the same reason.
Yeah.
So,
We sometimes will refer our clients to your clinic, so.
yeah, so I had been gone since the end of January, but that program could use referrals.
Good
Yeah.
to know.
Because getting volunteer attorneys really has never been a big issue.
Good, yeah.
And so they, their capacity has not been met, so.
You mentioned, the beneficiary deed and the medical directive. I'm aware of the beneficiary deed. I wasn't aware of the medical directive. Is there a charge for that?
Oh, no, there's not a charge for any of it.
They just
just
don't
make it-
advertise it?
Well, I have not advertised it. Supposedly they're going to advertise it, but I've heard that for 6 months before I left, I think. They didn't at first because they wanted to just get it up and running, which was understandable. But then I spoke with the Recorder of Deeds towards the end of last year, and he assured me that they were going to start advertising it. So I'm not sure where the advertising, stands at this moment.
One time or another, they were not advertising the beneficiary deeds either.
They do it in connection with the beneficiary deeds. So, because there's a lot of people that don't have those, or sometimes people actually see that they do have a will, but then they realize that the beneficiary deed is a more efficient way for their heirs to get their property. So they'll, opt to go that way too.
I put out a lot in our county about the beneficiary deed. Am I okay to put out about the medical directive? And who would they
As
see?
far as I know, that's the last, when I left in January, they were doing those.
Do you know who I would?
Recorder of Deeds office, I want to say the number to get an appointment is 314-615-7100.
Oh, that's the number for the deed.
It's all the same.
No persons.
No, it's actually like there's several people that answer that phone.
And I know we're not on the subject, but I would like to get that information out to the people in the community.
Okay,
Uh,
I
can you
can
get-
contact the recorder of deeds and ask him because I was supposed to get a flyer and I didn't get that, but maybe I went too quick, so I'll call him.
That would be great. From my experience referring clients to this program, they have often been confused about who
Mhm.
gets the money on this.
Well, oh, yeah. A lot of that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what the disconnect is.
yeah.
But there probably is one, I'm not gonna tell you.
Yeah, there was a gentleman there, his name was Alan,
I
and that's the
wanna
name
say
they gave
he
to
left.
people for the beneficiary. He's no longer there.
I don't believe he is. I
Right, 'cause they
believe it's a
told-
woman now, but I don't know what her name is, but I can find that out.
Would you please let me know?
That'd be great. I'd also love to.
Yes.
Yeah,
We have a lot of those kinds of properties that you're talking about. At least, well, we own 390 pieces of property. We're one of the leading municipalities that have those tax delinquent properties. Are people who are living in the properties who are heirs. And they are determined to stay in those properties even though the loved one has passed away, but they don't have enough documentation to make this a legal transfer of real estate. So with that, we're gonna have a seminar about housing and how to help people. And we have a lot of older adults
That's great.
who need it. So we're going to be making sure we invite you to
Good.
come.
I
It's
would
in
love
August.
August,
In
what-
August, I think it's August the 24th.
Okay, let me put that on. Do you know what time of day?
It's probably going to be, well, right now, I think they're looking at like 6 p.m. just because the daylight is longer.
Yeah,
But
sure.
if it's earlier than that, definitely, but I will call to make this an official invitation.
Thank
Because
you.
a lot of people need to know, and we have a lot of disenfranchised persons living in the community and needing to really have this kind of assist. So really
Great.
appreciate this information, especially about the beneficiary deeds. They just don't know and haven't had anyone to share that information in detail.
those are really hard. Like, you know, the daughter lived with the mom forever.
Oh,
They
yes.
took care of her and then mom dies, daughter
Yes.
doesn't have a job, doesn't have anywhere to go, but yet it's not her house.
Right, and the daughter is too busy trying to fend off other family members from trying to.
Oh, that's true.
And
That was my next.
That is a really
Yeah.
terrible situation to be in.
Yes.
It's like I hear this happening
Constant
to them now.
So in that scenario, what would be the correct strategy for that adult daughter living with mother?
Sure. So that adult daughter, if the mother's passed, she would come to us as a client.
Well, even before the mother
Well,
passed?
before, the mother should get a beneficiary deed and name the daughter as her beneficiary. This then, as soon as the mother passes, she will be on title. to the property.
If the mother isn't competent to do that kind of work, they
Then
need the power of attorney.
in advance, they should have gotten power of attorney before she started to not be able to make these decisions on her own. Because she can't get a power of attorney once she's already in that state, which is why it's important to do those things in advance.
Can you get a conservatorship or something like that later? Are there other devices? If you wait too long, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you wait too long, it's a lot harder.
Because it's too long.
Once somebody is no longer,
Living.
has capacity to make those.
Mine.
I will say though, capacity as a concept is a little flexible in that like,
It's a relative.
right, it's relative. So we'll go, I'm sure you are all very familiar with this, but when we are evaluating capacity, we're not necessarily focused on like, do you know what day of the week it is? We're thinking, do you understand what this document is that you're signing? And today, when we're talking with you, do you know that you're naming your daughter as your beneficiary? And if that we can tell is good, then it's fine. So it is a little bit more flexible than some think. But
Can multiple people live in the property if they don't have the proper paperwork? Multiple family members, or is there such as my son is the oldest, my daughter, can they, without all of that, can they do that automatically? What happens?
I think that I'm understanding your question, but I'm not sure, so.
Well, my question is,
Restate it, okay, yeah,
I'm fully married. I haven't did a beneficiary deed. I haven't did anything. I passed away
mhm,
and I have multiple children.
yeah.
So who gets to stay and can they both? Can they not more? Who gets the decision making?
Sure, so legally, the property will pass by the rules of succession and Missouri statutes.
Mhm.
So the property would then pass to all of your lineal descendants. So if you had a spouse, it would go half to your spouse, and then the rest of it would split between your kids, and if any of them had deceased, then it would go to their. So it can be a large pool of people who are now on title. And legally, those people all own as tenants in common. So you own a fractional interest in the property. Anyone who owns can live there. But rarely are people playing by those rules
Yeah.
in that situation.
Right.
Because they don't even know that those are the rules that they're
Right.
supposed to be playing by. So that's what's confusing, I think, to a lot of our clients is that the way that your property split is being decided by something that you didn't consent to. It's like,
Mhm.
so I think people often be confused, like, well, why does my cousin have an interest in this property? She lives in Florida. She's never even been here, but she legally has an interest in the property. So we have to explain this often to clients a few times because it doesn't make intuitive sense. So in that case, somebody who's living in the property would come to us as a client and say, hey, my mom died a few years ago and my brother and I are living here, but somebody else has an interest. And we would try to give them some legal advice about what the status quo is, what's going on with the property, and then what options they have to move forward. But I will also say we rarely take cases where the family is in dispute with each other, which is frequent. That's often what's going on. But we, as attorneys, are not well equipped to resolve that dispute. So sometimes we will send people to mediation if they're open to it. But sometimes in those cases where families really can't agree, there's nothing that can be done.
So what happens to the property or the people? Does the state automatically, or the municipality, county take over? What happens?
That would only happen if the family doesn't have the wherewithal to pay the taxes. So if they are not able to pay the taxes, so if there's a bunch of people on title and they're all fighting with each other and then no one gets around to paying the taxes, eventually it will go to tax sale. It might be bought up by an investor or might be bought up by the municipality. So it depends on what the family's able to do. But people can live in heirs property indefinitely if they continue to pay the taxes and do what they're supposed to do to keep the property, but they can't really get any loans, they can't get home repairs, so these properties often deteriorate over time and become really dangerous to live in, so. Yes.
And then the sale of the property.
That's fine.
So the sale of the property also would need to have all of the people sign, so that makes it really hard for people to escape this situation of, like, we really can't live here anymore, but the only other option is to abandon the property, which is why those properties end up becoming vacant. And it's a really terrible situation.
It is, and I'm smiling because I am personally
Yeah.
involved in a situation like this.
That's
Me and my brother.
Wow.
No, but the thing is now, the good part for me,
Mhm.
this is in Houston, Texas, and I was gonna ask you, the beneficiary deed, is that a Missouri
It is.
thing? Okay,
It's a
other
Missouri
states
law.
don't necessarily have it.
Not necessarily, but other states will often have something similar. So
Okay,
you can ask an attorney if you're in
yeah,
Texas.
I'll check in Houston, but fortunately, we both agree, and we took care of mother until she passed away 6 years ago. And we're just not getting past grief enough so that we can now start to restore her home. Well, the home is great. And so we're doing the Airbnb for first responders. All that kind of thing. Yeah, we're doing that. That's me and my brother.
Yeah,
But his daughter lives in a garage apartment above the two-car garage. And she's been living there more than 10 years. And so this is going to be an interesting conversation that we're just now starting. Yeah, but it does get tricky now. My mother had a will.
Mhm.
So the property went to the two of us and there are no other brothers. Everybody's gone, except me and my brother.
Yeah.
But it gets to be a very interesting conversation when you sit down with your only other living relative in the family to have a very serious conversation about trust and all of that. So I'm so glad that you are saying these things, so for the people here in Missouri, because let me just bring it back to where we are here in Missouri. In these municipalities, this isn't the first municipality where I've had to leave the road. We have had to call in the police department on family members in the lobby having a fit because so-and-so took care of mother until she died.
Yeah.
And the other one just came from California and said, hey, she finally died. And so, oh, wait, I'm the oldest one. And I should get the property instead of you who's doing the bed paintwork, et cetera. And that gets to be very contentious.
So from a policy perspective, we are firm believers in preventative tools.
Yes.
And so before it even gets to that situation, we're involved, many of us are involved in other organizations that educate the community on those tools before it becomes a crisis situation. So STL Village is one that will have periodic, sessions that might have, and what a topic might be difficult, how to have the difficult conversation with your parent or your children, and how do we encourage that? I mean, going upstream to where we
Right.
can deal with this before it becomes a challenge.
Right. So I would.
Oasis probably has,
Yeah.
do you know any resources that we should be directing
Well,
organizations to?
I wanted to share you already know about this, but I think our partnership with the Home Repair Network is really unique and good. So we have built out a referral system with the Home Repair Network, which is comprised of 14 different home repair organizations in the region. And Legal Services is partnering with them to create this referral network. So former clients of home repair organizations get referred to us. So like Beyond Housing sent out 1,100 letters to their previous clients, referring them to us to get beneficiary deeds. Rebuilding Together has done the same thing. So we are serving clients who, there's clearly an interest in preserving the family home if they're getting home repair. So how are we going to support that with legal tools? And then they also refer potential home repair clients that are not on title. So if someone comes to them and says that they're living in mom's home, they might not qualify for home repair at that time, but if we can intervene and help them get good title, then they can get home repair services. So I think that's a really great partnership of like aligning interests and getting that, and Beyond Housing has been one of our best partners with that. But yeah,
How is the May 14th weather going to affect all this?
Yeah.
Because you've got a lot of folks living in property that's not entitled to that. Do you expect a big influx, or are you going to have to go in and solicit and say, hey, if you're in this situation, come see us, we'll try and make it better, get clear title, whatever?
That's a great question. I think it will be interesting to see how this plays out, because first, if FEMA ends up being present and available to people, FEMA has changed their rules since Katrina, so that there are now more ways to be on title that you can qualify for. So I think the barriers are a little lower for people who may not have good title now to access those kinds of emergency relief funds, but we'll see how that plays out. I think insurance claims might be challenging, but I think a lot of these homeowners don't have insurance, so that might not be the thing either. So I think we're still waiting to see how that's gonna play out, because I think everyone's still in just a crisis mode. But in the coming months, we'll probably be fielding some of these questions. I just don't know exactly what.
And there may be help available regardless of
Yes,
clear title or not.
yes, yes.
Another question, and this may be more appropriate for St. Louis City, but is Paul McKee still a major player?
I was thinking the same.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a great question. He's one of our bad actors, as we call them, people that we sue. And we have sued him and won a couple of times, and he's still a player. He still owns property there. But I think.
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I do think we've been successful at chipping away at some of that and trying to reduce the amount that he's owning, and also make it harder for him to hold on to all that property without having to pay anything. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good question, because it kind of explains the mission of what we're trying to do. But there are smaller scale bad actors all around the region also that own a lot of out-of-state LLCs that buy up a lot of property.
Keep that from happening, and it's like that everybody is experiencing that. We got a few in Pine Lawn, just behind housing.
Yeah.
Housing, and I talk to Chris all the time.
Yeah.
But Chris Creamer, but anyway, how does that work? I mean, to not be legally discriminating against someone from buying up those properties, how do you all have some advice about the wording to be used so that those people who are, excuse the expression, slumlords, and I think literally they are, that's not an accusation.
Yeah.
How do we keep those people from buying up lots of properties in this municipality
Yeah.
without saying, oh, well, you can't buy land or buy property, but somebody else can.
Right.
So tell me.
That is a real challenge, and I don't think that anyone has completely figured out how to prevent it on the front end from happening. I think the best tools that are available for municipalities and for the city are code enforcement that is rigorous and strategic, targeted towards those kinds of owners. There's a group of municipal mayors going to the Strategic Code Enforcement Management Academy next month in Memphis. And I think that will be a really good resource for some of the municipalities to deal with those bad actors. Because a lot of the tools that are available or that the municipalities are using don't effectively hold those people accountable because they don't come to court. I mean, they don't feel like it actually matters.
If you charge them a fine, and you only can charge them up to so much.
It's just the cost of doing business for them.
Right.
They just walk in with the cash.
You can't locate them.
So
I manage those dockets, my job responsibility, and so it's a question that I've had a lot lately myself.
Yeah.
I understand that there's a couple of council members on the county council who have a lot of really strong opinions about how things are kind of sitting with these LLCs. If you all are looking for a more detailed deep dive legally into it, I'm happy to confer with you all and make sure that I get the wording of the question correctly and route it up to legal to see
That is.
what that looks like.
I was gonna ask if there are other states that do a better job legislating controls over slumlords.
I know a municipality that is starting, or they say they are, trying, where they had a meeting where, this one guy is just buying up all of this property, and so the area is trying to, or if they have not, trying to fix it where once you a renter and you only can have so many in that area, in that community, or you only can rent for so long, or some sort of stuff they're trying to, where they really
And this is,
just trying to make it owners, they're trying to get some of the renters away.
so is the municipal level the right level to,
That was
Deal with
gonna be
this?
my question.
or is it higher up?
So the way that we view this issue is not necessarily preventing people from buying property, which is just in our country generally not legally favored to prevent transactions, but instead to use the combination of private and governmental tools to make it harder for these businesses to operate. So making it expensive to hold on to a vacant, burned out property without any windows, because that should not be something you can just do. So making it expensive by putting fines and fees on the property, by collecting those through a special tax bill, through, doing abatement on some of these properties and adding that to the tax bill. So making it a pain in the butt to be a slumlord, to be a owner of vacant property in your community. And the municipalities can be a great way to do that. If you're in an unincorporated area, the county can be, I think, more strategic at doing that as well. But also the private communities have some tools available to do this also through the Abandoned Housing Act, which we use, and the receivership laws, nuisance laws. So in St. Louis County, we've been bringing some of these lawsuits in municipalities on behalf of their neighborhood groups. And that can add some additional pressure to these bad actors. So I think having the government and the private citizens working in tandem to address these is the best way to do it, because it's really very hard to legally discriminate between buyers of property.
What cost is that though?
What do you mean?
Who bears that cost?
What do you mean? I'm
Like-
sorry.
Who bears the cost and all the legal stuff, making it more expensive, and you don't get them to pay? Do you take liens on the property?
So the ways that our lawsuits go, first, we're legal aid attorneys, so we work for free. So the neighborhood is not paying for our services, but because we are legal aid attorneys, we have a lot of time to spend on things that might not be profitable for a private attorney to do this. So it makes it more expensive because they're gonna have to hire an attorney to defend this lawsuit. So their attorney's fees make it more challenging to hold on to this property. And additionally, if we end up winning the lawsuit, the ultimate outcome can be that the neighborhood gets title to the property, and then they can transfer it to a rehabber or someone who can do the right thing. So
And that's our situation. I'm glad that you all are addressing that. The municipalities, I'll speak to it specifically, it is expensive.
Yeah.
And municipalities have to have staff available
Yes.
to do the code
Yes.
enforcement.
yes,
To get an attorney, and the taxpayers, ultimately, the ones that do still pay taxes in that community, they ultimately are bearing the cost of all that,
Yeah.
because the cities are having to hire people, literally try to track it down. That's why I was interested in what you're saying, because if we could just find those LLCs that may be in Florida with bunny slippers on, really that have bought 25 properties and left our community with things that, and then we have to tear down some of the houses if it's been there 10 years and it either has foundation damage or roof damage. It's a goner, and even though it was at one point a decent brick home.
right.
So I will, to answer the question specifically, the municipalities are having to hire people, are trying to get resources like this to try to address the issues, but the taxpayers are paying for a lot of that.
So true. Another thing a policy thing that could help St. Louis County, in St. Louis City, when we record deeds, both the grantor and the grantee have to sign those deeds. So there's a human person who's signing and buying this property. In the county, there's no such requirement. So someone buying property, an LLC, does not have to sign a deed, and no human person has to sign that they're buying. So that is something that county council could pass through legislation to add a grantee signature requirement on deeds. And the recorder of deeds would enforce that by saying, you don't have a grantee here, we can't record this, this isn't. So it's a really great tool in St. Louis City. When we're doing our litigation, or when the city's trying to track down someone, they have somebody's name and signature there that they can go look up and serve for the.
Accountable for it.
Yeah.
Can a municipality pass an ordinance to make that happen?
I think that would need to happen at the county level.
But it would
because-
apply to all municipalities,
Yes.
not just
Yes.
unincorporated.
Yes, because it's the recorder.
It's kind of straightforward.
I think so
I
too.
think so
I think
too.
it's a very straightforward thing.
I think so
That'd be
too.
really good. with-
Maybe then they
with
could work
application.
Encourage them to do that.
right.
Because the deeds are recorded at the county level
Yes.
and municipal.
Yeah.
level.
Yes,
That's why it has
exactly.
jurisdiction.
Yes.
But if we're transferring all those 300 pieces of property to someone else,
Oh, sure. I mean,
that's what I'm
if,
talking
if
about.
you,
And that way we will be able to still have some level of, you know.
Correct.
I like
Yeah.
that, if you're in control.
that's great.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it would be a straightforward thing to be advocating for at the county level. Absolutely.
Can you speak to your backlog? I mean,
Yeah.
the work you do is just so important and so wonderful, but what is the demand? And because I think of, as Lillian speaks, could Lillian be calling legal services? But are you gonna say, we just are so swamped, we can't handle that right now? Could you just speak to that a little bit?
Sure. We are very busy.
Yeah.
Especially in the city, we have had to kind of slow down the number of cases that we're taking against problem property owners, because we've had trouble getting funded, especially in this new environment where funding is a little harder to come by. Like we had applied for an EPA grant, it's gone. That's not doing, you know? And so we have, if we had more manpower, we could be doing a lot more, and funding would be really helpful to allow us to do more. We do have a specific grant for the home repair partnership, so we do end up assisting a lot of people in Piedmont and other municipalities that are certified beyond housing. So, and we also have money from the Port Authority specifically to work in St. Louis County. So we do have room in our case logs for that kind of.
So hypothetically,
Yes,
if there were a senior services fund in the county of St. Louis, could you apply for a grant
yes,
to do some of this work?
yes.
And do you get the grant from the city? Do you have grant funding from the senior fund in
We,
cities?
so the senior fund, I believe, does fund some of our work at legal services. I don't think it's my unit in particular, but yes. And we do also get funding from St. Louis City and Affordable Housing Trust Fund and SLDC. So we have some, we don't get money from St. Louis County. We do get it from,
So Councilwoman Clancy years ago was in the forefront of getting affordable housing trust fund, and I don't know where, I don't think there was ever much money there.
No, that's the problem. There's a housing trust fund, but the last I heard it had like 50,000.
Yeah.
oh, wow.
It's really,
Yeah, there's not a, I just have my.
Challenge. so we're looking for bigger ways to generate revenues to do this kind of work. And the tax levy seems like the best avenue that we can support and that we would have some impact on. Other than that, are there good not-for-profits out there that support foundations that support this kind of work?
Yeah, I think that there are, sometimes public pressure will make banks a little bit more interested in doing this type of work. Wells Fargo has funded it some. And I think there's another bank that has funded this work across the country. Where James S. McDonald has funded us on this heirs property work in particular.
Has Midwest assisted at all?
Not that I'm aware of, yeah.
And, or US Bank, those two.
Not yet, but I think that makes sense for that to be, I think it's also seen as kind of a way to bridge that mortgage lending gap. Like more people are eligible.
Could there be, or there may even be some sort of ordinance or legal where when a person buys a home like that?
So that's,
they
St. Louis County has, the recorder of deeds had approached, some, at least two, I think, title companies to say, what do you think about this? You know, when you're signing all the papers to close on a piece of property, especially if it's just one person, you know, if it's two people buying it and they have it set up, that's one thing. But if it's one person buying it, to do a beneficiary deed at that time.
That's
Do whatever legal means that we use to make that happen. So you're avoiding all of this because you're not thinking about it that much at times, so it's a good time to sign it. But then at the other, people just don't think about it. So sometimes it's not that they on purpose did it, just don't think about it.
And I think people don't know about it.
I just
They
think
don't know
I
there's
know
a
a lot.
solution.
Right.
Yeah, they don't, but is there a way to make sure that the banks themselves or whoever's doing the loan can make that right there
Right.
part of
It's
it?
just part of the,
Correct.
pile of papers you sign
Yes.
and buy this property.
I think the realtors are interested in that. I don't know. I'll have to talk with Charlie there, see what the status of that
And I'll
is.
follow up when I talk to Recorder Decent and kind of
I'm
see where he
curious.
stands with that
Yeah.
because
Like
that's
it's
what,
part of the.
yeah, he and I had a number of conversations about fix the problem, prevent it before it starts,
Yeah.
and things like
Gerald is a good advocate on these issues. He
that. Yes.
ended up coming to the Vacant Property Leadership Institute with me in Austin, and I think he's trying to view his role as the recorder as something that can have a bigger impact.
Yes, I agree.
So I think he would be supportive of, adding that
Yeah.
grantee requirement.
I would think so. Yeah.
How would that affect, or does it have any effect on land banking?
So, no, but I think land banking will have an impact on this issue at large in positive ways. The current way that tax foreclosed properties, the current state legislation on that is not great. And constitutionally questionable. So having the land bank legislation in place will be good. And St. Louis County first passed the enabling legislation and is putting together the land bank board. And so they'll be trying out the land bank legislation in the next couple of years to use this new tool. And I think that it's just another tool in the toolbox to try to address vacancy in a systemic way.
Would that also cut back on some of this LLC problems?
Possibly, yes, because the land bank will be able to set priorities for who can purchase property that's in their reserves property. And make decisions on who to sell to that are beyond just who has the most money, but what would have the best impact on the community, what buyers and developers would help our community most. So.
My other question is, do you do any do you have a educational seminar
That's not,
just to do for the
Yeah.
public at large? Because, again, I think that there's a lack of knowledge that people should be,
Yes, so
completing this paperwork
Yes.
before their demise.
we do, I do think your earlier question though was kind of our balancing factor of we don't want to do too many of those, so we're just ringing off the hook.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly. Well, it fit into that, how much time do you have to do? Go out and do a seminar to 25 people in a room.
And they all call us and they all need help.
Exactly.
And that's good. I mean, we want those people to call us and get help. So, but it's a balancing thing of we only have 5 attorneys and we can only do this much. And so if we do too many educational seminars, we'll get overrun. So, yeah, but we do try to target them, especially for communities that are interested and are impacted by this. So we've talked to residents of Pine Lawn, residents of Elston, Northwoods, Ferguson, and tried to get some of these things out there, but yeah, we also don't want to do too many.
Can I please get you to come?
So I'd also love to learn more about what's going on in Spanish Lake.
Not only Spanish, but the surrounding areas
Yeah.
of
Let me give you my
North County. We have Glasgow Village, there is Castle Point, probably parts of Bell Fountain.
My colleague Rachel, I think, has been in touch with some people from Castle Point about some of these things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I guess part of my question was that just what you do, but the fact of educating on beneficiary deeds.
Yes,
Just that.
just that, yeah.
Just that.
We do.
So that people,
Yes.
that would bring everybody to you, I know. But the
Yes.
importance of doing that and what are the steps you can take, which I think
Yes.
may be a better role for the county to be doing and taking a more proactive, I mean, maybe that's something we could
I think the
advocate.
problem is more than just legal, though. I think in the same way that we're advocating for multidisciplinary teams to address issues, especially with elder abuse issues, but it seems that we need like a social worker in the room to help people have these difficult conversations, because part of the problem is people don't want to have the conversation. Mom, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. Things need to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you get people to, that's why I want to keep going upstream
With
with,
churches.
that's a
I
good
find-
place. for it. Yes, it's a very good place for that.
How about hospice companies?
Hospice.
Interesting.
Because there's social workers already in place
Yeah.
that know the family.
And assisted living facilities as well, maybe.
Sure.
There's a lot of staff members
It's a
there.
broad
Mhm.
educational, can be a very broad educational approach, but
I would
Um,
appreciate if St. Louis County maybe took the lead on some
Yeah,
of this educational work, because.
Let's push Gerald.
Yeah.
I think it's better there than they do that with you, because it doesn't need to necessarily come from an attorney.
Right.
It needs to, it's kind of like talking about power of attorney and healthcare directives. I mean,
Yeah.
attorneys need to be involved at some
At
point.
some stage, yes.
Yeah,
However,
And
educating them the importance of it
Yes.
is.
education is the, I mean, really because the only reason why I know some of the things is listening. And because I get involved with the older people and some of the disabled people and, there is, of course, County Council Webb, she involves me in, a lot of community activities and, events that, you know, when she had these things like such came up as the land banking.
She's been
Uh,
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then we have, the Spanish Lake Association, Julie Griffin. She at times, and she'll involve me. I mean, she has a workload, I really, unpaid volunteer, but still, that's how I can ask some of the questions, but I'm sure there are people, on my same level that don't have that,
Yeah.
you know, and,
So we're also trying to, thank you, I think that's great. There's a lot of people who I think can get the word out in the communities, and the more that we do that, the better. Another thing that we're trying to do is activate lawyers who might be willing to do this a lower fee, not for free, but for kind of a low bono network. So we've been talking with some attorneys who could flesh out that, because it's not only an issue that affects people who really can't afford an attorney. Sometimes it's just like, oh, I don't want to pay $600 for this, but if it were $200, maybe that's a different conversation. Maybe it lowers the big rate, maybe there's an opportunity to do more education and get referrals, not just to our very busy caseloads, but to some other attorneys too. So that's still kind of,
I think the county has the mechanism in place. I think maybe it just needs to be oiled.
where they want to put the word out.
Because there is no age limit for St. Louis County
Yeah.
either. I mean, you can be 25 if you own a piece of property
Correct.
and they'll do a beneficiary deed.
And believe it or not, people 25 are buying.
Oh, no, they are.
Yes.
But I mean, the
I'm proud.
Department of Motor Vehicles has done it when you buy a car. You know, who's your TOD?
That's right.
And you say something, you know, you do
I
that.
think that was,
So I think the
when you
county
brought
can
that
just
subject
need
up.
to be pushed.
I'm a little skeptical.
it makes it easier, it makes it simpler.
The challenge I have with this scenario, I agree with you, it should be the county, but we have personal experience with staffing shortages at the county and the impact on even us, on our commission. So I think that there needs to be a different revenue source. to
Oh,
fund this.
they do, the county, program is funded through some kind of grant.
yeah, it's kind of a specific.
It should be
I
already.
don't know
It's kind of
exactly.
money that Gerald found that.
Yeah.
Can I ask the other organizations, and it won't get a meeting for what we need, why Does the other organizations get to get it?
Like what?
Like, I hate to use this one, farmers. They have, I hear BC, some kind of grants and all of that, why is it not some sort of senior thing?
Beyond our control.
Sure, different types of money.
Sometimes the sources are different.
I realize this is probably the wrong question to ask.
August
It's
28th.
probably the wrong question to ask you, but are you thinking about expanding it all into any of like the inner ring south suburbs, Afton, Lee, because I have run into this quite a bit.
So, yes, EMA in particular, we have imposed the new executive director of the home repair network at large, but he used to run the housing partnership in Lima. And so we have some connections with them, and yes, we are interested in looking at Lima as well, because it's kind of a mirror issue.
Want to set up an office in Spanish Lake?
Robin,
Make it happen.
Robin with an I would like to thank you. Really appreciate your
Yeah.
time.
Really appreciate his inviting me.
And then, whoever, I thank her too. I thank whoever invited her to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was great.
Very
Nice to
good
meet you all. Would love to follow up with any one of you, or a group of you about this. So, Dan, will you share my contact information now?
I will do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
May I? And,
Thank you.
I just want to say, I know you don't want to really advocate,
Yeah.
but today we're having a neighborhood watch meeting. So I want to put you, would you please come if I can set it up, please?
What time is it?
It starts at 6:00 in the evening.
So my band is playing a show tonight, so I.
No, not tonight.
Oh, okay,
No. We meet once a month
okay.
and it's the Thursday, the first Thursday is the first Thursday of every month. If I can speak with Julie, Griffin and see if we can get you to come and would you?
I think- Absolutely, yes, I would love
So
to.
this is, June, July,
July, the first Thursday in
the
July.
first Thursday.
I will have to check my calendar, but I would love to join at some point. Yes.
Thank you. And, we open it, we welcome it to everybody, so.
Let me check. So is that the third then, July 3rd?
Probably so.
Put that in my calendar. Ashley. Will you send me an email or give me a call about this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I get the
great.
phone. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, and then the 28th is the Pine Lawn event? Is that right?
Yeah, August the 28th, that's what I was right on that. That's August the 28th, which is a Thursday at
Okay.
6 p.m. I just called to verify that. And-
Okay.
And that's it, at 6:00.
Great.
And is that open to
Yes, please,
outside the time?
please come, because that way you all can see if it's being done right as we talk to people. Or if you may have suggestions, you may not have needed to serve just snacks, maybe dinner. That way, it would be great to have all of you, any of you, that would be great to introduce you.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I mean, you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of our agenda.
What's on the agenda?
No food.
We're gonna discuss about, the progress being made on the senior fund tax levy initiative. That's gonna be.
Curious. I'll just sit around.
So
We all.
I don't have any specific, I put the city senior fund on the agenda because sometimes we do have updates from people who participate. And I don't know if there's anyone on the call who has any updates on the St. Louis Senior Fund. Okay, and we'll move on to the next one. Commission on Disabilities. Usually we have a representative from the Commission on Disabilities that reports to us. Sue Orton is not here today to do that. I'll just say that we continue to work with their commission on the Universal Design Initiative. And it's with legal people right now, and there have been some back and forth with the Home Builders Association, but beyond that, Daryl and I have not been informed of any new. Let's see, Senior Tax Levy Initiative. I am now on the executive committee for the Senior Tax Levy. And we had a meeting on Friday. And a lot of it was just a recap of the interactions we had with the county council at the committee of the whole meeting recently. And so, as all of you know, we, the majority of our agenda, even though we report on everything that we do in a year to the county council once a year and to the county executive, we focused most of our time on this initiative because we felt it was the most impactful thing we could talk about. And we got a lot of interesting, dynamic dialogue with the council members at this meeting. Because a lot of the questions were very specific, I invited Jamie Oaksall from, formerly of the City Senior Fund and currently kind of the, I don't know what her title would be, but she is the kind of the champion of the senior tax levy in the county. We made sure that there were representatives of major not-for-profits in the room that would be beneficiaries of this, and all of the fiscal sponsors of this initiative were present. People from Lutheran Senior Services, Cardinal Ritter Senior Services, St. Andrew Senior Services, Jewish Family Services. I could go on. I think Paraquad was in the room as well. If I'm missing anybody.
Washview was there.
Washview. And we were all there to advocate, to make sure that the county knew that there was a lot of community support for this. When there were specific questions that I couldn't answer, I invite Jamie up to help me answer, and she did a really good job. And I shared my notes after the meeting with Jamie, and and I think Carol, you might have been involved in this. We formatted answers to the questions so that the county council knew that we were taking their concerns seriously, but combined with answering their questions, we made an ask, which was please publicly support this initiative, because we need 4 county councilors to vote for this so that we can get it on the agenda, so we can get it on the ballot without having to pay for a very, very expensive petition initiative. And what we learned at the county council meeting from the bad experiences that the county council themselves have recently had in their trying to put Proposition B on the ballot in April, was it cost the county $500,000 to get the ballot, to get that Proposition B, which failed, on the ballot. And what we learned from the county council, the attorney for the county, was that if they had put that on the ballot in August or November, the county would have 0 cost, because if it's a state or federal election, there is no cost to the county to put these initiatives on the ballot. So we didn't know that until that meeting. And so we, the executive committee agreed that it is in our best interest to move the ballot initiative from April to either August or November. And our PR firm is now working on determining, doing some surveys and to determine what would result in a better vote for us, whether it would be August or November.
August.
We don't know. I mean, there's specific types of people that go out to vote in August for things. And are those people likely to vote yes for the senior tax levy or not? Is that more likely to be a November? Would we pull out the right people that will vote yes for this initiative? Why do you say it August?
Because August is better weather. August does not have holidays where people are planning to travel.
They come in.
I mean, that alone, is best.
I bet there's somebody has done some research
Well-
on that on the internet somewhere.
So the company that we hired to do this is gonna, well, we'll see if they confirm your answer.
And there's another initiative on the August ballot that's scheduled to be on August ballot that will impact older adults. That's that transportation.
Yes, yes, I was gonna say.
And a lot of people are trying to, people, like Beyond Housing,
Get more people
get
out.
talking points together to educate the public so that they would vote on this. So if we combine whatever education points we have with our issue, with that, then August ballot could benefit all.
Oh, yeah, that's on the ballot this year. I think.
Yeah,
we're
this would be
talking about
2026.
26.
Oh.
Yeah, it takes, the schedule is to spend about 6 months educating the public before we get to a point where we're gonna put it on the ballot.
Well, I'm
there's-
glad that
The fiscal sponsors, I think, are raising about $500,000 for this kind of community education campaign. Not to spend it on, like, getting it on, physically on the ballot, but to get people to understand the issue and support it. And that's, you know, the people that I listed that were in the room were those fiscal sponsors. So, yes,
To help get to.
probably. I'll get back to you on that. But definitely, so that was one answer that was specifically asked of us because they were very concerned about the cost of the county. The county wanted to know what specific successes the St. Louis City Fund had and how many specific individuals and how many touches occurred through the senior fund in with their roughly $2 million budget. And so we promised to get back to them on that with annual reports from the St. Louis City Senior Levy Fund that outline those numbers. They wanted to know more information on how grantees vet service providers and how senior levy funds have put protections in place. There's a big concern about, you know, abusing the funds that are available. And so we said that, you know, we described what the city senior fund has in place. They have eligibility requirements and award limitations in place for organizations who plan to apply for the funding, including that organization is fiscally sponsored by a 501c3 or governmental agency. I'll share the responses if I haven't already done so. I'll share the email responses with everyone. An organization must demonstrate success in providing services to St. Louis City residents 60 years of age and older and demonstrate capacity to carry out program work funded by proposed grant. Organization must have policies and procedures in place. So there's specific requirements that the city already has in place. And the plan is that if the county passes it, we would have those same policies and procedures in place. So the St. Louis City Senior Fund was supported by 2 senior levy funds in the Kansas City region who helped develop the city's governance structure. So they already learned from Kansas City. We will learn from both. Who's responsible for appointing the board to oversee the funds? From Missouri Revised State Statute, upon approval of the tax authorized by section 67.990 by the voters of the county or city, the governing body of the county or the mayor or county executive of the city shall appoint a board of directors consisting of 7 directors who shall be selected from the county or city at large and shall, as nearly as practicable, represent the various groups' locations to be served by the board. Each director shall be a resident of the county or city. And I'll just note that Councilwoman Shalonda Webb commented in the public hearing that she thought that this commission would be perfectly suited to be that board. And she supports advocating that we are the board since she really thinks that the work has already been done to vet us and that we already represent the 7 county districts. And so there are a number of county council members that believe that that would be the best route to go. We did not comment on that. That's not our place. There would be specific legal issues that would have to be vetted to determine whether we could serve both on this commission and on that board. And I don't have an answer for that. But that board would, if this ordinance passes, a conservative estimate of the funds available from the property tax would be about $15 million.
Wow.
So it could conceivably be more than that. So the board would hire an executive director, not unlike somebody like Jamie Osel, to advise the board on how to, you know, vet the grant, you know, grant proposals, et cetera. But that if we get 4 members, I'm just saying, they might be recommending that we be that board.
would that board also be like we are volunteers?
Yes.
Yes.
Uh, So let's see, and so it's a little unclear in the state statute. And there were some questions by the county council members about whether the council themselves would select the board or whether the executive would select the board. A little reminiscent of Proposition B. So we'll see. That's not our fight. Yeah. So how does the senior tax freeze impact the senior tax levy? We have the same understanding as what was presented at the committee of the whole by the council, that a senior levy would not impact those who have signed up for the senior tax freeze. They want assurance that the senior levy fund will not stockpile funding. And then I think the Missouri state statute does not include wording to prevent funding from being accumulated or stockpiled. What we have found in Missouri is that the need for additional funding for older adults is so large due to 40% of state funding cuts for programs and services, older adults, and due to less than 1% of both local and national foundations that support older adult programs and services. The result is that all 56 counties that have a senior levy fund are not sitting on large sums of money. The board for the city of St. Louis Senior Levy Fund, for example, has vowed to get their funds out so services are available for people to live independently. The city receives grant requests that are in excess of 5 times the amount that is available. So the grant process is quite competitive. Any funds that have accumulated from underspending during the year are allocated for emergency purposes. And we got some thank yous from the county council members in response to that. They did voice an interest in participating with the executive committee that is spearheading this effort, and we are going to figure out how to encourage them to participate. So when Clancy wrote back about some of her concerns dealing with the limited funds that they already have and some other initiatives that they want to put on the ballot to, raise funds for other things, and there's some concern that we're competing for the same sort of funds. So it's going to be a struggle, but we need 4 council members to get it on the ballot. That's our hurdle right now that we're focused on. Any questions?
Dan, I know that I believe the consultants were going to meet one-on-one with all members of the council to kind of see if they could seek a yes/no answer in those individual meetings.
So they had the individual meetings. Mike, you participated in one of those meetings with County Councilor Archer. And you felt that he wasn't against it?
Right. I thought it was very positive. He was in that meeting, and that was before our presentation in the committee of the whole.
Right.
And it kind of surprised me at the whole meeting because he didn't bring it up on a one-on-one about the cost of the election, because he was the one going on about, oh, it's going to cost $500,000 to get this on the ballot done. What was he talking about?
I think Councilman Hassett.
Huh?
Who was it? Dennis Hancock is the one that I think.
Archer was too. Archer was really into it as well. Yeah.
But that nobody has given us a clear, okay.
At the individual meeting, I mean, I think more than once he said, well, yeah, it's just a matter of putting it on the ballot, let the people decide.
Yeah.
So
Great. Yes, please do that. Yes.
we'll see though.
We'll see.
So at none of those meetings did anybody come right out and say, yes, I'm going to put my name on this thing. I don't think. I think Councilwoman Webb was probably the most supportive vocally at the meeting. I suspect that Councilwoman Days will as well.
I'm not sure anybody came right out and said, no, this stinks. I can't get behind it.
Nobody said that. Nobody said that.
No.
We know from.
It's an insight.
But there have been also discussions with County Executive Page, and he has other, concerns about funding specific initiatives that he feels this, again, the same concern that is this gonna compete for the same votes? And as said in the meeting, you know, some people just go down the list when there are a bunch of, you know, tax levy initiative, no. So the educational component is really, really important here. Today, we cannot say that we have four yes votes just to get it on the ballot without spending a lot of money. I had a lunch with Councilwoman Banger. My agenda was really about getting you nominated. District. Yes, and but we talked about it.
Yes.
Okay, she had a lunch with Jamie and with other people on the committee as well, and she told me that she's supportive of it, but we will see. Nobody's voted yet.
That's what she told me too, but she hasn't voted.
I would think by listening to her questions that she's a yes. But I thought she had some really good questions, but I think they're in a positive vein.
Right.
Well, because she thought there already was. Already in the county, and I spoke. And I'm like, no, not here, in the city, yes.
I mean,
She's like, well, we need one, and I'm like, yes, we do, for many reasons.
well, we still need clarity on actual things that they voted for. And from them, you know, I'm a little unclear about whether a 65-year-old who, you know, applies for the senior tax freeze will have the tax freeze apply to 2025 assessments or 2026 assessments. And they seem to think it was 2025 or 2024 even.
It is 2024, according to the state law. Now, what they do with it, I don't know, but that's what
It's the information that we're getting isn't really
they've
clear.
done, in my opinion, just from the calls that I have received. The information on the senior tax freeze was just, oh my lord, I can't imagine how they could have bottled it more.
No, it's terrible.
Really, it's.
So there are a lot of things that mean, there are so many people that
Yeah.
believe that this new law says that if you're 65, you don't
You
pay
don't
any
pay any
property
tax,
taxes.
yeah.
It's not the case.
It's both. It's a mismessaging from those who develop the message
Well,
and the media.
the county is putting blame. I'm not gonna say that's been wrong, but I will tell you that came from the state level.
Yeah.
When that original bill was passed,
Absolutely.
it was, in my opinion, possibly one of the worst pieces of legislation ever passed, because it said nothing.
Well,
It just said nothing,
What-
and it was craziness.
we didn't want to say this at the committee of the whole meeting, but we were asked specific questions about what would apply to a senior tax levy and what wouldn't. And it's a little, I mean, I got a letter from Councilwoman Clancy about this and her legislative assistant about it last year, but I'm getting a different answer from the Missouri budget project. So what I'm hearing is that how monies are just, you know, applied from a new levy will have to be litigated before we all know. What we do know is like there's a fund for the blind and there's a fund for specific debt for one specific thing that are specifically in the language excluded from the freeze. But those are the only two that I know of.
That's the only two that are in the legislation.
Those were the examples that I should have said instead of the form. How are they? That's when I said, how are they getting all of it? Those two, and there are other small ones, and we don't.
It's gonna have to go to court.
Yeah, they were in the state bill.
Yeah.
As a carve out, but the city,
They've done something different.
yeah,
Yeah,
the city implemented something quite different.
They did.
So it's really just has,
Their lawsuits.
it's just a freeze on the city portion. Well, if you just freeze what the county portion.
It's very little money.
It's
It's
minute.
Somebody told me $11. They also, seriously.
Yeah, it's very low.
And, the biggest question that came up, was, well, if I'm 65, I don't have any children in school. Why am I paying taxes?
Well, because when your children were in school,
I paid
the 65-year-olds at the time. were paying taxes.
They're just, and I agree with them.
Yeah.
Maybe because I don't have any in school, and I do want my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, I want all of those to have the best of education that they can get.
Right.
But I paid my time. Why do I keep paying forever?
No, that's just how taxes.
Why
are.
aren't the people who's having the children
And you,
become accountable?
you've always gotten the same argument, I send my kids to Catholic school, why am I paying,
Correct.
you know,
Yeah, right.
for public school education?
Well,
But I don't think I'm fair.
The Jeffersonian ideal of public affairs.
That's for that way.
Thank you.
I'm gonna read this.
Educated
A couple more.
population.
I mean, it's just like everything else. You keep paying the same old things. Put my taxes somewhere else. Put my taxes on the levy fund.
Yeah, well,
I mean, seriously,
I wish we could pick and choose, but we don't. That's just.
but why?
how it works.
I'm just so, why? Maybe I don't understand a lot of it. I don't anybody.
That sounds like you should like.
I don't have a short
say
answer for
later-
that.
Later, maybe.
But
I
why
think-
not?
Because we have a representative government where we have a constitution where we all support supposedly the idea that we're all in this together and that we elect representatives that then tax us. And they vote on where the taxes go, and our control is that we vote for those people. And either we vote them out of office, we don't like how they raise taxes or how they apply those taxes. I mean, that's a control we have as citizens. We don't have control over saying, well, I don't like that specific tax. Because you might not like specific taxes and somebody over there might hate supporting everything that you believe in. And we would have a very imbalanced situation if we all, it would be anarchy.
Yeah, but the accountability just has to get better.
It really does.
Yeah.
Especially since.
That's a bigger issue than we can deal with at this
Where's the
commission.
representative?
So I'm gonna get back to this agenda because we gotta go through it all. I'm gonna go quickly because there's nobody here, I believe, unless they speak up, to give us any updates on the Missouri Master Plan on Aging. And again, I already talked about the local Universal Design Initiative, but I haven't heard any news on the state level initiative. Are there any reports on the St. Louis County Home Improvement Program? Oh, okay. Yeah, well, for that we know. I think we haven't had a meeting in quite some time, so I don't know that other than in the committee of the whole report, we haven't discussed that Liz and I had lunch with the new county prosecutor and who is extremely supportive of what we're doing here. And she went into a lot of her personal story with us about why she supports older adult issues, especially elder abuse related issues, and I'll share that with you. Her family, she has a brother, or had a brother, who at age 25 had a motorcycle accident and had to live in assisted care in a skilled nursing facility from age 25 on. And during COVID, her sibling, all of the siblings would visit the person, the 25-year-old, at that time he was much older, visit him on a daily basis if they could. They would bring him meals. And during COVID, the policies were changed because everybody didn't quite know what to do. And so that limited face-to-face visits. I don't know exact details, but apparently it was reported that their sibling wasn't being fed and they weren't able to see their sibling and their sibling died. Right? And so they, through some other people, I don't think they wanted to, but they initiated a lawsuit against the care provider. And I think that's ongoing. So she has personal experience with what she considers neglect in senior care, and she feels it from her heart. And she has a twin sister, which I didn't know.
She's also an attorney.
So we presented our desire to have this multidisciplinary teams approach for elder abuse issues, and she was supportive of that and assigned a person in her office to be our liaison. And Liz is going to be talking to that person so that we can try to push this policy forward so that it isn't just, you know, if there's an abuse issue, it isn't just a police officer showing up, it's a social worker as well that can help kind of understand what's really going on in the dynamics of those situations and help, you know, make it not escalate to something that's just a police action. But anyway, so we're getting support there. Carol has good news to report on the property tax relief for older adults, circuit breaker legislation.
Passed, I think
We talked about that through
aware
emails.
of that, and that's a positive thing. So we're real pleased.
And then
I don't know if it's been signed by the governor, but I think he said he would sign it.
I think it's, well, because isn't it with another bill that even wants, just, yeah, he'll sign it.
It's in the other bill that gives.
And what the tax, in a nutshell, it's gonna give what kind of tax? relief?
It will, let me see if I can send out the information, but in a nutshell, it increases the amount that an individual can to qualify for circuit breaker.
Mhm.
I think it's like to say around 38 for renters. And I think for a couple homeowners, I think it's up to like 46,000.
It was a big, it
It
was
was a significant increase. It has a rider to adjust annually for inflation, which is a huge, and then I believe that, and then the amount of the award was increased.
Yes. So because it hadn't been how many years? since-
Yeah, it's up to $1,800, is that, I don't have it on the top of my head, but it was,
something like that.
when the bill was written, they were like, let's just put it all in.
Mhm.
And it ended up going forward in that.
Which is, but a lot of other things went forward with it that I'm
Yeah.
not so happy about.
Yeah.
But I think there's some tax relief for multi-millionaires in there.
Capital gains, no state tax on capital gains. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
But this was a very good thing. So
And it's,
it's about time.
When will it be in effect?
as soon as the governor. implements it.
I know, 2026.
2026?
Yeah.
for the 2026 tax year,
Yes.
yes.
So will they increase it, what, 2025 in between the 2026 since it's annual?
I don't think so.
I haven't heard anything about that.
No.
I think it's gonna be 2026. It takes a while to get it all,
Or,
the wheels at the state and at the local level.
so it's.
But it's a huge positive,
It's very good.
because we had examples of people who got their refunds and they're like, well, I got $11 back, to
Yeah.
Vicky's point earlier. And now people will be able to qualify for larger returns, more people will be able to qualify, which addresses the whole COBRA issue that we talked about. You know,
Yeah,
because of
unlike this-
COBRA, people were no longer
They would,
Right.
able to qualify, and
they
yet
qualify.
So unlike the senior tax freeze, which applies to everybody, no matter how wealthy they are or how
Right.
much their home value is, this is means tested. It only applies to specific people that can, you know, show their need.
For people who really need it, I believe this is going to really be the help. The senior
Yeah.
tax freeze, I mean, it's helpful, but it's not an immediate help, and it doesn't help you pay your taxes next year. Whereas a lot of people get this money from the circuit breaker, and then they use that and apply it to their taxes, which is a tangible help to,
Right.
So they get it,
and it's more understandable.
And it's really with people like Carol helping advocate for this,
thank you. There were a lot of advocates across the state.
but it was years. of
Yeah, it has taken years. Legislation takes years. and they-
It does.
Takes a while to get the good stuff done.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there are any updates on Corp or Aging Ahead.
I
This
know
month.
nothing about it.
There's nothing.
Aging ahead has the transfer of leadership taken place?
I don't think it officially has yet, has it?
So what's supposed to?
Well, Lisa resigned,
As of
Was
what
she-
date?
or she is
It's the
retiring.
process.
It's
It
either
was in the
the
process.
end of June or the end of July. I mean,
Yeah,
I think it's
that's
because
still-
that was my question.
Although her successor
It's Christine.
is Christine and
Yeah.
has been attending our meetings and will
Yeah.
probably continue to do so. And I don't know what happened this month.
Don't see her.
I don't know I didn't get responses from people. And I guess last month I made individual calls to everybody. I guess I had to do that. But I didn't get responses for people saying, no, I'm gonna be out of town or anything.
Yeah.
I think Liz might be out of town. She takes her vacation. But now for commission member share out and commission events. I just want to do a shout out to an event that some of us attended at the Heights in Richmond Heights. It was sponsored by STL Village. It was a really good program with some national speakers. It was called Older Adults Matter. And we had people from the national village to village movement talk to us. We also had people that have been in federal government, on the social services side. And we had the gentleman's name who spoke, but he has advised presidents on senior issues. And the topic was the kind of horror that we're in right now in terms of funding changes at the federal level and what we can do about it. And the big, and the, the person from the Missouri budget
Amy.
project,
Amy Blooming.
Amy spoke to us.
Spoke.
And the new executive director of the city senior funds spoke. And they all advocated the same thing, which is call your senators.
That's what Carol had me to do with the circuit court.
Yes, your federal, so, and write a letter. And one potential advocate we have at the federal level, these words are coming out of my mouth, is Josh Hawley. So, who is supportive of Medicaid and has been vocally against Medicaid cuts. So we are encouraged to send a thank you note to Senator Josh Hawley for his support of Medicaid. And while you're doing that, also mention as an aside that we hope that he will also support the continuation of the SNAP program and the funding, because both are on the cutting block right now. And SNAP, I mean, I said, I think I copied my letter to all of you that I sent. And it said, it's a lifesaver.
Yeah.
So thank him for what he's doing right.
I also-
Encourage him to. Yes,
Me too.
so, and I don't, you can send a letter to the other senator we have, but I'm hearing that other senator does not respond. I've sent other letters to that
Yeah, so
senator.
that's been too responsive. And at this kind of late hour, you may want to call.
Yes.
And they may not pick up because they're being so inundated with calls, but you can leave a message, and sometimes I'll call like at 8 o'clock at night and just leave a message.
Right.
So
Senator Hawley's office responded within hours to my email.
that was
Wow.
great.
Super good. So,
That's good news.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
so there is an individual on the other end of this. We think, maybe you're a robot, I don't know, but somebody's up there.
Should we also do the same with the people who got the circuit breaker through?
Sending a thank you to the senator.
You can send a thank you to your state.
And the reason I say this Josh Holland did, maybe that'll push all of them to legislate something for this levy that you're talking about.
Well, this is specifically the council members that are in control of this one for us.
Yes.
Only the council.
Only the council.
Only the council.
We need 4 yeses from the county council to get this on a ballot.
So how do we sell them? Do we have the people?
So I would I'm gonna I'll forward you some of the meetings for the senior tax levy initiative. And I'd encourage you to attend those. Sometimes they're Zoom, sometimes they're in person. But they're strategizing on the best way to get the yes.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
And simply not because I'm on the board or not
Yeah,
simply because.
I'll forward you
of
that
the
information.
council on the web, but for the older people, period.
Well, Cookie, you have a really good relationship with Councilwoman Webb.
Yes,
I mean, she has great respect for you and I think you for her.
I
And,
hope I have this, all of them,
yeah, and she will,
because I'm not on anybody's side, I just.
she'll listen to you.
yeah.
Well,
she
she
will
will,
listen.
and I hope the rest of them pay some attention, not.
Well, Councilwoman Days attended your
She did,
award ceremony as well. So, and,
she did.
mention it to her as well. All of us should go back to our council reps and just tell them where we stand on this specific issue. It's our role to be advisors to them and to advocate for specific policies, and we're just fulfilling our role.
And this is our.
Well, I'm serious, I hope all of them do, because I go a lot of times in front of all of them.
Yeah.
Even if it's for one person, but it's not taking people, sides of what they should or making them popular. I think it's,
Sharing.
and I think they do because they know that I'm really sincere,
Definitely,
and all of them for what I do.
everyone has good words for you.
You get a crowd.
Even when you're not in the room, they say nice things.
Because it's a passion, and that's why I'm so appreciative of, Councilwoman Webb letting me be here. Which I expressed to Carol, because I've always done it. Didn't have as much leverage, didn't know as many people, didn't know about what to do. So, I really want to help.
Do we have any other share outs?
With the tax levy, the site is the site of the older adults services, it's not a political divide.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
for older adults getting services, and so you don't want to separate things.
Well, if you remember, we had a presentation with representatives of the Merrill Mission Fund and the person who actually performed the survey in the county last year to gauge whether there was going to be support for this tax levy. And even in counties where we wouldn't necessarily suspect support, we were seeing support, and we were seeing support because there are a lot of people over 60 that vote,
They are the ones that vote.
That's right.
and they are supportive of it.
Exactly. It's in a council.
Most of them have to know.
That's true.
I'm just.
They
I'm not
know,
gonna go
we're,
to voicing that,
just
the
keep saying it.
communication problem is a terrible thing.
Well,
Do you know, Dan, that we have AARP, right? You know what people think that ARPA money is?
they-
It's telling you. And look how long it's been.
there's a lot of confusion about,
That's 2 years. I know, that's a whole different thing.
right.
City, but I've got a quick question. When we talk to our council people, our council, reps on county council, they have so many people coming at them about so many different issues. My question is there the senior levy fund that we want them to vote for, and really get on board for? Do we have just a 1-page dot point?
The script.
Just a
really.
script, so that.
That's a really good
because
question.
they're gonna be passing that on to their assistants as well, and their assistants have a lot of influence on them as to how they prioritize things. We get just a just a one page, real simple, we need you, and this is why, boom, 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 boom. And then they, I think they were really fine, we go and talk to them personally, that'd be great. And then this is the lead with piece.
Well, I haven't
I
seen
think,
one.
no, they were gonna put one together, so I think it's a question for Jamie,
Yes.
that being done, because,
I'm not trying to give you a word.
Well, I think what they're trying to get all their ducks in a row right now.
That would be a good way to educate the people too.
Part of the problem is
The same sheet.
everybody at this table is itching to get this thing passed.
Yes,
And they're thinking strategically about when is it gonna be on the ballot? How many months before it goes on the ballot do we need to start educating people? Because we can tell people today, they're gonna forget if it's not on the ballot for a year and a half.
oh,
So,
can you add that to that note then? Just, we need to start whenever you say, we wanna start now with the information campaign. So it can be on the blah, blah ballot. And that way
Yeah.
they have some sense of time framing and calendar framing and meetings they go to or what have you.
yes,
And the other thing too that I found effective is that we do a door-to-door fly thing in our community. And I hate that one of our elected officials decided to do the robocall thing. I hate that, especially for seniors, they did some bombarded with these weird calls, but somehow it's effective, we get people in the room.
yeah.
Yeah, but
it's-
let's just, I
So
would
it's,
not advocate for
it's
that.
too early for us to know when we're gonna start doing this. If it's April of 2026, then back up 6 months, that's when this big campaign is gonna
Then
really,
we.
Yeah.
But I really can't speak for once the cost money.
yeah.
So at the earliest, it's next spring.
The
Right.
information campaign in April.
Well,
Right now, the biggest issue is if the county council says, I'm sorry, we're not gonna, if we don't get 4 votes,
right,
then this ship may not sail.
How do we get the
Because
people to go down?
here's the issue.
Now,
It's gonna cost, okay, it costs roughly $500,000 just to do it the cheap way, just to get the word out, to hire the consultants, to get the ads on TV, to do all the things that you need to do. If we have to do a petition drive, it more than doubles
Wow.
in terms of costs.
Right, that's.
That's really hard.
And one of the things that you don't, the reason that getting it on the ballot in November is a challenge and probably why we struggled in 2016 when it happened is because you're competing for very expensive airtime for ads. It was a presidential election. This is a midterm, so it's not gonna be as bad as that, but it's still not good.
That bullet that she's talking about is great. And I got the experience in doing a petition drive. I did it 3 times. I did it for the liquor.
Bless you.
For a community where we had 13 or 16 liquor stores in one place, and now we don't get to have all of that there. So, we got enough, so we have to wait until somebody else, all of that. I've done that. So I've done a petition, twice, I think, for the rest of the groups. Sam Page and Ernst on that particular
And
one.
payday loans, getting them out of.
Right.
Northwood, they had every department.
Yes.
Oh, that's crazy.
Think about that on a county-wide level.
Yeah, it's the whole county starts to be this.
Right.
Are there any other events or any other commission share outs that we haven't discussed? Does anybody attend any older adult related meetings or initiatives that they want to share with us? Or is there any event that's upcoming that we need to know about as a group?
I just spent a whole lot of time with older adults out of state
Yeah.
in a retirement community.
So I'm gonna call to adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting will be September the 4th. Unless
I was gonna ask. are
that's,
we-
I think we're not,
I think
you typically don't meet in the summer unless people want to, I don't. But so we'll see you all September the 4th, and I think that should be a face-to-face meeting as well.
If I get them, Robin to come out, are you guys gonna come to the neighborhood ones?
When was it?
July 3rd.
I'm out of town.
July third,
No.
it's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
I mean, so you can hear, that way you also can hear what the people are saying, the questions that the people are asking.
I'd like to.
Please.
So, just a number.
If you don't get a lot of representatives here to come, you are our representative, so you,
They always answer.
so you report back to us.
Hey, you guys, we are now, Dan came out. He was, Liz came, the trailblazer.
Yeah,
Look. I was all over the place.
Uh-huh.
I knew more people and people that I did not expect. God afforded me that because I got to meet some people through Dan. And she told me she would be in touch.
I introduced you, and Madeline Franklin, there was an entire STL Village table at that event.
well, their admin person was.
Cheryl was there.
Yeah, Trailblazer.
Last year.
No, this year. It was their. It wasn't Cheryl, it was their admin staff.
Cause I mean, I talked to Cheryl and I talked to Madeline and I talked to the other members of the STL Village people. The village people had a
The
table.
village had a table. I'm not surprised.
Okay, Dan, are we adjourned?
We're adjourned.
Okay.